Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Late Breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage, and me, Ben Hocking. Today, reviewing the Mexican Grand Prix, won by Max Verstappen, joined on the podium by Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. A red flag mid-race, spiced things up a little bit, Sam. It was going down one direction of not very exciting. I think it was brought back a bit, though.
I think the red flag was needed. Thank you, Kevin Magnussen. Thank you to Haas for a suspension failure. We appreciate your service in producing what ended up being a quite spicy race. We had some good moments towards the end. It was spicy. I think a lot of drivers were kept looking better than maybe they should have done come the end of that Grand Prix due to the fact that the red flag brought it all back together. And hey, there's nothing like a little mid-race restart to keep you all on your toes. I quite enjoyed it. I'm glad it happened. Sorry, Kevin, that you had a bad time. I'm glad you're okay. But for the sake of the race, it was worth it.
I can't decide whether it made it better or worse.
I can't decide whether you make this podcast better or worse.
I'm sure many people feel the same. But it's I'm on shockingly on the fence about it. But enjoyable race, I would say. 6 out of 10.
Well, that's all we were here for. Harry's race rating.
Keep breaking late. See you later.
Bye-bye. Yeah, cheers, everyone. What's actually coming up on today's episode? Moment of the race, much later on in the episode. Lando Norris's recovery got all the way back up into the top 5. Our thoughts on how he went. We have to review our bold predictions. Looking forward to that. Alpha Tauri, they had a good day with Daniel Ricciardo in the top 10. Our thoughts on his performance. Ferrari finishing 3rd and 4th. But let's kick off out front. Max Verstappen won the race. He won it by a long way. There isn't too much to say on that one. So let's move a little bit further back. Lewis Hamilton managed to claim 2nd place and fastest lap, made good progress from his qualifying position in 6th. 19 points going his way. Of course, Sergio Perez with his first lap retirement scoring nothing. So we'll get onto the Turn 1 incident in a moment. Just focusing first on that battle for P2 in the championship, Hamilton versus Perez. Sam, do you think that it is now very much alive going into the next 3 races?
Absolute godsend for Lewis Hamilton, right? He had that fantastic performance in Austin, Texas, gets the disqualification due to the floor rubbing too much, running the plank down, and you think we all wrote it off, actually, in the review that we spoke about. We all said that's basically game over for 2nd place in the championship. The gap seemed too big. Without that case, it was 4 races to go. Sergio Perez mucks up Turn 1, which we'll get onto properly, but that gives away slightly what I think about the situation. Lewis Hamilton delivers a brilliant 2nd place, a fastest lap, 90 points in the bag, 20 points between them in total. If there's one more floundering performance from Sergio Perez, and let's not be too, unrealistic here, a floundering performance is highly likely. He's not exactly set the world on fire when it comes to consistency this season. Then a 2nd place is more than possible. I think it's still a challenge. It's still an uphill battle. But with races such as Las Vegas about to come through, I really do think that it's a bit of an unknown game, and it's kind of all or nothing. And you never really know what someone like Lewis Hamilton is able to do in an unknown circumstance, who regularly performs well when we come to new tracks, over Sergio Perez, who is going to take another knock to the chin here. He's going to struggle with that motivation. You saw Christian Horner having a word in his ear after he got out of the car. We're not sure what was said there, of course. You've got to be thinking the pressure's on. Now with 3 races to go, they want that 1-2 in the championship. I imagine that Perez is a little bit nervous, he's getting a little bit shaky, and I think that Lewis Hamilton is probably rinsing the idea. I think you heard him on the radio after the race. You heard him go, that felt good, guys. That was a great race. We're moving up. I feel strong. I feel promising. Their trajectories, and Hamilton's on that constant uphill. Perez is very much on the plateau going down. They've crossed over now, and I think it's full charge ahead for Lewis Hamilton. It's exactly what he needed. If he kept that Austin performance, I think the gap would now be about 10 points in it with 3 races to go. So it really is looking possible that Hamilton could jump into 2nd, which after the first maybe 7 or 8 races of this season, you never will have put Hamilton back in 2nd. Maybe Alonso, maybe one of the Ferraris on a good day, but Perez surely, but never Hamilton or a Mercedes. So they've done a great job at bringing this season around.
For reference, 20 points separate Hamilton and Perez now. So if that 2nd place had stood in Austin, just 2 points would be separating those 2 drivers.
Well, Perez not getting points.
If Hamilton maintained his 2nd place in Austin.
Yeah, but Perez would have got less points. Okay, I see what you mean.
Oh, true. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
No, I'm with you now. Yeah. I'm just looking at Hamilton's 18 points in that.
God, math man.
Point being, it would be very close if that was still in place. Given that, Harry, we've got 3 races to go. We do have a sprint race coming up next at Sao Paulo. Still on the cards?
I mean, if you're going to put, I'm not a betting man, but if you're going to put money on one of the drivers here, I might go for the 7-time world champion in this one, or the driver who is in really bad form at the moment. Which one would I go for? There's still a chance, easily. I mean, it's going to take a bit of. Do you know? It wouldn't take a huge amount of misfortune for Perez or bad luck, etc. for Hamilton to do it. I think Hamilton could even do it on just pure performances alone at beating Perez. So it's quite crazy. I remember earlier in the year in a press conference, they asked Fernando Alonso, who at the time was quite close to Perez in second, is second achievable? And he said, yeah. Little did I know, he wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about Lewis Hamilton. Those two are a team.
Still knew his car was going to be the slowest car on the grid come this point of the year. He was talking about Hamilton all along.
He knew. But even then, when he said it, it sounded ridiculous to say. But now we're here, and it is an achievable. It's an achievable thing for Hamilton, which is a bizarre thing, but also speaks to how well generally or overall this year Hamilton's been driving. A couple of blips after the summer break. But yeah, USA and again today, he did the most he could. He got them the best result out of that car. It wasn't catching Verstappen, but he was on his own, P2. He wasn't anywhere near anyone else. So I think it's definitely achievable. And as you say, with a sprint coming up in Brazil, which delivers a good sprint because Brazil's good, and we won't go into sprint races, but it could be chaos there. And Hamilton could well snatch those points he needs.
Yeah, I was almost prepared to say before this Grand Prix that the battle for second was over, and it was going to take something like the result we had today to bring it back into contention. And I keep saying that Sergio Perez doesn't need to deliver a great deal to see this out. Before today, it's a case of, okay, if he just finishes 5th place consistently the rest of this year, that will probably be enough. But I keep saying he just needs to do something, and he doesn't do it. Particularly the last 4 or 5 races have been a real struggle for him. And the biggest source of frustration outside of it being in front of his home crowd is that qualifying pace, he was on it. Like he wasn't that far behind Max Verstappen in terms of qualifying pace. We've seen multiple Grand Prix this year where the gap between those two drivers has been half a second, if not more. Here, it was what, a 10th and a half between Verstappen and Perez? There wasn't much in it. So to not be able to convert that must be frustrating. Again, he started in 5th place with a chance to go into the lead into the first corner. How often, even at Mexico, does that happen? Whenever someone starts from 3rd place on the grid or 4th place on the grid and manages to get first, that is a real rarity in Formula One. He made such an epic start, and I appreciate his, I don't know, his mindset of wanting to go for the lead and not being able to cope if he hadn't gone for it. And we'll get into the crash in a moment. But it just has to be a huge source of frustration for him. And yes, I do think this battle is now well and truly on. Lewis Hamilton driving the way he is, Sergio Perez driving the way he is. 20 points, that can go away very, very quickly. That turn 1 incident, Sam, what did you make of it? 3 into 1 certainly did not go.
Yeah, I mean, I want to credit his getaway to start with, because as you just alluded to, Ben, the idea of a car going from 5th to potentially 1st, getting one straight into a corner, let alone going from 3rd or 4th, is we haven't seen a start, I would argue, as good as that until the crash. Maybe since Alonso Spain 2012, I'm thinking, maybe 2011, where he started 6th or 7th, and he was alongside first place by turn 1. And I think that Perez then, he had absolutely the world in his hands, and I imagine the entirety of Mexico were holding their breath. And the famous expression came to mind as he hit the brakes: you can't win a race in turn 1, but you can most definitely lose it. And with that car, the ability, we saw it with the DRS available when Max was coming back through the field with fresh tyres. they had the car to win that race. They had the car to be 1-2. And he might not have gone on to win had he not maybe ever taken that turn one on lap 1. But second place was more than definitely available. It meant we'd have locked down second place in the championship for him. Maybe Max would have been kind, I don't know, and pulled out of the way. It's Max Verstappen, but you never know. There is a chance.
Have you met him?
Oh, no, not personally, actually, but, I've got previous. And then you don't leave the room available. All of the time you leave the space, and when you leave the space, you have a good race. He did not leave the space. Poor Charles Leclerc became an absolute filling of the Red Bull sandwich. And wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. That's 2 episodes in a row I've said that. He gets absolutely clattered. The side pod ripped open like nobody's business. He couldn't carry on from that. You could see the pain on his face when he was sat in that pit box hoping to get the car back out. He was almost in tears. You feel sorry for him. You saw the impact it had with the crowd and the amount of people that left within halfway through the race. You've not really seen much like that. It shows how much of an impact one driver can have on one demographic. It was huge, the impact he's got here. I am gutted because if it backfires and he never gets a chance to even be near the front again, and this is his last ever attempt at the Mexican Grand Prix, he's absolutely throwing it away, and it's entirely his fault. No one else could have done anything to get out of the way more so. He had so much space on the outside. He could have sat in third place for a few corners and got the position on the next lap. He rushed it. It was an amateur's game. He threw it away, and he is entirely to blame for this one. It's a real shame.
What were your thoughts on it, Harry?
Yeah, like Sam said, I admire the commit. Like, this is Checo. He's going all out. It's his home Grand Prix. And you've watched that start, as you say, mega start. And then he picks up that toe and then he's on the outside. And he must be thinking, oh, my sweet Lord, I'm going to be leading my home Grand Prix in a second here. And he was for about 0.8 seconds. But yeah, it was all on him. And it's tricky because Perez is a person under pressure, a man under pressure at the moment. And I fully understand why he went for it as aggressively as he did, but he doesn't need to win to keep his seat. He could have easily been P2 this race, and that would have been more than enough to satisfy Red Bull. And he's gone for broke here, and got broke. He doesn't want anything. So that's a terrible quote. Please don't use that.
I know how that feels though.
He's gone for broke and got broke. But
yeah.
It's just and as you say, Sam, I just we've given our criticism of Perez and also compliments when he's done well, but today I just felt sorry for him. Like, you could tell, like, he knew he's mucked this up like so badly, and it's the whole context of where he is, the pressure of his home race, and it just makes it whole. And Daniel Ricciardo being a little menace and pretending he's back in 2020 again, apparently.
Timing.
Talk about timing.
Timing.
It was all from yesterday as well with the qualifying with Ricciardo. But yeah, he will. I really hope this isn't the turning point and we don't see Perez in F1 because of this. But I'm more for his sake, because he'll just look at that back of that turn one and go, "What? Why did I do that? Why on earth did I go for it?" So, tough one. It was on him, and as you said, there wasn't anywhere Verstappen and Leclerc could go. By the way, don't boo Leclerc. He literally did nothing wrong there, so stop that. Stop it. It was all on Perez on this one, and yeah, like I say, I think he'll look back at it. And they said in the commentary, well done to Leclerc for not, well done to Perez for not, pointing the finger. I think he knew. I think he wasn't pointing the finger because he knew it was his fault. So, yeah, it's gonna hurt, and there's not a lot of time now to dust himself off and pick himself back up again, because Brazil is quite literally in 6 days' time.
To your point, it's one thing to have an incident where, I don't know, P7 is on the cards or P8 is on the cards. P2 was definitely achievable here for Sergio Perez, which is in some respects credit to him, in that I think he had the pure pace to get to that point. If he'd been able to let the race unfold without that first lap incident happening. And we've constantly said, that 1-2 Red Bull, regardless of which way round it is what they are striving for. But it's something that Perez has really struggled to achieve since Miami, pretty much. And we always refer back to Miami as sort of the turning point of there wasn't much to choose between Verstappen and Perez first 5 races of the year. Miami was the turning point. If we're looking at the 14 Grand Prix since Miami, Perez has been second twice. Yeah, it's not been a regular occurrence that he has been directly behind Verstappen in these races. So to have that opportunity present itself at his home Grand Prix as well, it's a real kick in the teeth. The incident itself, I don't have too much to add because I agree with you both in that I think even if Leclerc in this position, I don't think he ever would have done this. If Leclerc had seen both Red Bulls either side of him gone, this ain't going to work, and he'd backed out, I still think there would have been contact between Leclerc and Perez. It would have been more front of Leclerc's car to Perez's back rather than his side. But I still think there's contact happening, even if Leclerc makes the decision to back out a little bit later on. The reality is, we saw on a number of occasions, 2 cars struggled to go through that corner side by side. When you put one more in there, that struggle's only going to increase. I think that was he turned in too early for that move, and he's ultimately paid the price. And as mentioned, it's a shame because there was a definite result on the cards for him. Before we go to our first break, I think we've got a bit of time to review some bold predictions.
No, let's move on.
Go to the
Have
break.
a sandwich.
Yeah. Come on, let's not do this.
As already referenced on social media, I did say in the preview for this Grand Prix that it could not get any worse for us because our
Physically,
predictions for the
Ben,
US
you
Grand
said
Prix
physically it couldn't get any worse.
physically could not get worse. And I was really confident in saying that, and I was really wrong as well. Good Lord. Where do we even start? I would start with the worst, but I don't know whose was the worst. Let's start with Harry's because his ended first at least. Harry predicted that Sergio Perez would win the Grand Prix.
Home win, mate. Yeah, easy days. And as I said, for
close.
0.8 seconds was looking real tasty, that prediction, and then it wasn't. Go for broke, get broke.
Indeed.
Classic line.
Sam saw Harry's 1 retirement and raised him 2 because he said that Aston Martin would be in the top 6. If you'd said both Aston Martins to finish, you'd have been wrong. If you said one Aston Martin to finish, you'd be wrong.
What I actually meant was top 6 retirements. I just thought, I thought I'd cut it short. We've got a lack of time. I thought that was clear. So I'd like my point, please.
They were that bad. I don't think I'd give them that.
No, yeah, Aston, you suck. And now I've lost. So, pain.
Sam
I
can still
don't
draw.
understand
Still
how.
draw.
Yeah.
Somehow, mine was the least wrong, and it was still appalling. Mine was that Esteban Ocon was going to finish in the top 4, and I was looking because the first half of the race was a real dire experience from an Ocon perspective. And I looked up after the red flag, and things were going a little bit better. And then I realised he was 11th and still 7 positions away from my prediction. It's like, yeah, it's probably not happening. Yeah, he was slow. Alpine was slow, but he finished the race. So I'm going to take this as a win.
To be fair, I was almost tempted to give you the point because Esteban Ocon said one of the funniest radio messages I've ever heard in my life, which is, tell Haas I'm going to send it. And then 15 laps later, he finally gets past him. Good work, Esteban.
He didn't set a time limit. I think he was right.
You're hard, aren't you,
Well hard, Esteban, yeah.
Oh, did you see Haas's response on social media?
And they just said, ooh.
Ooh, good one, Haas. That's the best thing you've done all season.
Yeah. Oh, man. So, good news is, really good news, we cannot physically do worse for the Brazilian Grand Prix. It's not possible.
Surely not.
Oh, please, no.
I mean, Ben, you could have also had a DNF and then we'd all be terrible. That is the only step it gets worse from.
Tune in for Brazil.
It's a small insight, folks. I'd basically made that video before the race thinking, we won't need this. Smart. And then as the race went on, I was like, oh, God, better use this one.
If you don't know what it is, folks, check our social media. There's a rather ironic and hypocritical reel of us definitely looking very confident in our predictions, and then the results take place.
Do not make.
If you have your abacuses out, by the way, you don't need to move them at all because that was 3 wrong predictions. But Sam is now in a lot of trouble because without getting 3 in a row to end the year, three, it's going to be a loss.
Well, folks, I've accepted it. Obviously, that means that, well, if I don't draw, which would be miraculous, it might be bigger than Lewis Hamilton getting an 8th time title if I manage to bring this back. I think that you can all have fun with my social media account for a day. That'd be good fun, wouldn't it?
Oh, boy.
Ideas churning away in my mind.
I can't wait. I can't wait for 24 hours to pass and you guys to do next to nothing.
We'll actually forget about it.
Yes.
Okay, you've got one day left to do it. Better step up. I need to remember my password. I forgot how you guys log in.
We'll do one tweet and it'll be, I'm a smelly poo head, and then we'll move on.
I'll get like 1,000 retweets and I'll look amazing.
That is actually what's going to happen. Right, we're going to take our first break. On the other side, we'll be talking about Ferrari.
Yay!
Okay, Ferrari started this Grand Prix first and second. Neither of those positions held come the end of the 71 laps. They finished 3rd and 4th. Charles Leclerc was on the podium in 3rd place, despite that first lap tangle with Sergio Perez. Carlos Sainz, finishing in 4th, was under a bit of pressure from George Russell in the second stint, but eventually that faded until it was a pretty comfortable 4th place for him. Obviously, they started on the front row. Sam, was this realistically all they could have achieved, or was there a second place somewhere out there for them?
I mean, I made a carbonara almost in sacrifice for the Ferrari duo to go on and do well. And clearly I need to perfect my cooking skills because it hasn't turned out too well for them. So maybe it's my fault. Sorry, Ferrari. I just don't think they know how their car works very well once it gets to racing conditions, especially in hot weather, because I went on about this in our Mexican preview. I said that Max Verstappen is not closer to the midfield. Come the actual normal race day, he'll be dominant, and he was. Ferrari don't understand how to run their tyres over long periods of time, and they overheat, and they did. And it looks like they're very rapidly not becoming the second or possibly even 3rd fastest car on the grid at the moment, and they're struggling incessantly. Now, what worried me the most with this pace is that apparently Charles Leclerc's Ferrari is just as fast with a full front wing as it is missing part of a front wing.
Don't need it.
And I have to ask Ferrari, what do you think a front wing does if when you lose a lot of it, it still does the same thing? Because that tells me you've not perfected a large part of the car. Carlos Sainz unable to keep up with Charles Leclerc for a lot of that race and ended up finishing, I think, about 8 seconds behind him. Luckily, obviously, with the red flag, you got to replace that front wing anyway. But it didn't look good before that stint. It is the tyres that are causing Ferrari to have problems. Mercedes on the medium and hard compounds seem to be able to, well, Hamilton especially, seem to be able to really eke out that level of performance. Hamilton in the last 2 Grand Prix, in these hotter conditions, where the tyre compounds are needed to be stretched, have been able to pull out performances that we haven't seen from them for quite some time. George Russell not seemingly able to match Lewis Hamilton. I think this has been one of his worst pairs of weekends for quite some time from George. But Hamilton especially is able to take that leap in front of the Ferraris. Charles Leclerc, Ben, you might know this stat better than I do, but I think he now does have the worst pole to conversion record of any Formula One driver. I think it's 11 poles, and it's like 11 poles to no wings is now the conversion rate, which is
in a row. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've just
pretty shocking.
Just seen a stat from someone from a rival podcast, so yellow card me for this, but Verstappen's now to double figures for the amount of wins he's taken from Leclerc poles.
Oh, God, that is disgusting.
Can you imagine? He has more wins than some former champions if you're just counting the races when Leclerc started on pole.
God, sorry, Charles. That is brutal. But Ferrari, Charles, you got to start converting these, because the fact that Sainz won in Singapore and Charles, you've now had 11 pole positions in a row without a conversion that is horrible. That is absolutely filthy. So, yeah, I don't think Ferrari understand their race car. I don't think they know what their proper strengths and weaknesses are. There's a quick car somewhere in there, and they're lucky that their driver lineup is strong. But over the race pace, it just absolutely crumbles. It falls away. And I think they got lucky that Piastri is still learning. I think they got lucky that Norris had to start from the very back of the grid. I think they got lucky that Russell seemingly isn't on the same pace as Lewis Hamilton, and that Lewis Hamilton is the only man in that top set that's seemingly able to actually perform a normal race pace that isn't Max Verstappen, because Sergio Perez just crashes out in the turn 1. So I think they have actually managed to make themselves look better than they really were. I think if Norris was there from the full front, he'd be in front. Perez, in theory, should finish in front of them. Russell should be in front of them. Daniel Ricciardo was there with them for a lot of the Grand Prix in the Alpha Tauri, for crying out loud. And in theory, Yuki Tsunoda wouldn't have been too far off either. It's just not looking good. I'm hoping that the Freddie Vass era kicks in at the end of this season and we see a fully comprehensive, competitive, upfront and ready to go Ferrari that can actually bring consistent performances across race pace in different venues, because they just fall apart. They crumble. So, yeah, it's not been good for Ferrari to get a 3-4 from a 1-2. It's pretty devastating.
What were your thoughts, Harry? Obviously, the first and second place where they qualified wasn't then achieved in the Grand Prix. They do just about end up with more points than, they end up with exactly the same, I think, number of points as Mercedes from the race, and they beat McLaren, which kind of puts the distance between those two teams a little bit more. Good weekend, bad weekend, anything they could have done differently?
This goes back to the point I made at the start of the podcast. I'm slightly unsure whether I liked the red flag coming out or not, because I was intrigued. I don't have a lot of trust in Ferrari. I was intrigued to see where that was going, because they had overcut, if you will, and not really overcut anyone, but they were playing the long game here and had gone, 10 laps more longer than the likes of, I don't think they're catching Verstappen, but the likes of Hamilton, etc.
7 laps, I think it was. For
7
science.
laps, yeah. So I was intrigued to see where that one was going. Again, I don't know how well that would have played out, but I wasn't mad. They seemed the most confident. They went for Plan A. Plan A for Ferrari.
You never hear it. You never hear it.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? They seemed very confident, and both drivers agreed, which, unusual. So that's a good thing for them. But yeah, there's something about that race pace in the car. It's very quick on one lap. And yesterday I think was quite a surprise. We didn't really see that one coming. Fair play to them. They locked out the front row. Obviously, they couldn't keep it, but it didn't matter if they couldn't keep it anyway, because I think Verstappen was coming past them, even if it wasn't into turn one. But yeah, it's a confusing one. It's a real head scratcher, because you can be as fast as you want on a Saturday, but if you can't convert it into a decent race, I mean, it's still a decent race result, I guess, in terms of where they are in the championship versus their competitors. But given the gap of Lando Norris to Sainz by the end of the race, and Lando Norris started at the back, that's not good.
He not only started at the back, right? On the red flag, he got absolutely done.
Got mugged. Yeah, exactly. I think he could have been past Sainz, to be honest. It probably would have been if he had a better restart. So that's got to be. They're very much like Haas in that sense, in terms of they just going, which is weird because they use similar parts, but the race pace just goes to absolute poo, and they just don't seem to know why. And I guess it's only the decent qualifying that's kind of saving them a bit, because at least then they've advantage of starting further up the grid. So for next year, that's got to be a focus, because it's painful, man. Leclerc he drives well a lot. I mean, we saw it again yesterday. And as you said, he drove most of the race without a front wing end plate, and it's just painful to see him having to struggle around, because we all remember the start of the 2022 season when him and Verstappen were battling it out. Now imagine if there's Hamilton in there, it would be glorious. So please, Ferrari, just sort the race pace out. You've got a quick car now, well done. Strategy's still a bit questionable, but today you seem confident, so. Even if it was misplaced, but confidence is key. Now just get a better race car, please.
I think I finally actually solved this. I understand this now. Ferrari are doing one of those reenactments. They are just reenacting Williams from 2002. Put your car on pole and then just wait and see how long it takes for Michael Schumacher / Max Verstappen to pass you. Like that is all they're doing. Replace Montoya with Leclerc and replace Schumacher with Verstappen. The thing is, from Leclerc's perspective, what more can he do? It's not as if he is bottling these pole positions. He is doing what he can, and ultimately, I think third place was all that he could achieve. I appreciate the point about the intrigue of where Ferrari would have ended up if their strategy was allowed to be played out. Ferrari must be kicking themselves that they didn't abandon, but they brought their cars in not that long before the red flag came out for Kevin Magnussen. Otherwise, that would have helped them out a little bit in terms of track position on the restart. But yeah, I think from Leclerc's perspective, I was fine with the strategy. I think they probably did the right thing in going longer with him. With Carlos Sainz, I think that's where they made the error. And this is where, at least for Sky Sports commentary, Bernie Collins was making the point. And side note, can we just have Bernie Collins available every single race week? She is fantastic.
Oh, that woman is so
just to say,
good at it.
She is all of the things that I shout at the TV, like every single Grand Prix that no one else picks up, and then she does. It's a great feeling. So well done to Bernie for adapting to that. Anyway, yeah, I mean, she was making the point that as soon as Nico Hülkenberg comes into the pits, because that's what caused the gap that Hamilton dropped back into, Sainz should have stopped on that lap that Hamilton stopped, because track position was so vital that you at least want to make the other car work for it. I think overall, yes, Lewis Hamilton had the pace advantage on both Ferraris. He might have got past anyway. But at least if you are coming in at the first possible opportunity at that point, that he'd have come out just ahead of Pierre Gasly, who was still going around at that point, you use that opportunity to take the pit stop, and then there's no opportunity for Hamilton to undercut. If he's quicker and can beat you on the same strategy, you just hold your hands up and say, okay, fine. They're the pace, because there's not much you can do at that point. But to allow yourself to be undercut with such ease, and I don't think the deficit would have been enough, personally. I don't think the deficit would have been enough for Ferrari to make their way back past Hamilton. I think he would have held that advantage, which, as I say, if he has the pace to do that anyway, so be it. But at least make him work for it. I thought Ferrari made a strategic blunder in that sense. In terms of the second half of the race, obviously, you would have wanted more from Ferrari's race starts. I think Verstappen nailed both of the starts, so that would have made things a bit more interesting. But like yourselves, Verstappen had the pace to beat both of them. Once Hamilton was in clean air, he had comfortable pace as well. Sainz did what he needed to do to protect against Russell when that was a fight. 3-4, probably what they were going to get at the end of the day.
I was really surprised at how the hard tyre of Leclerc and Sainz didn't come properly back into the phase, and Hamilton was actually able to run that medium at a faster pace than the hards for the whole 30-odd laps that they were running them for. I really thought come 15, 16 laps into the stint, we would have started to see that crossover, but the gap just kept growing. I was really quite surprised.
Is that on Ferrari or is that on Hamilton? Because, as mentioned, Sainz pulled away from Russell on that same medium tyre. Is that Hamilton's performance doing the talking there in the later parts of that Grand Prix? Or is it the tyre factor of the hards not coming back like they should have done?
It's a very fair question. And I think in the post-race interview, when Jensen was interviewing Lewis Hamilton, Hamilton came out and said, I had to drive like you. I had to nurse those tyres. I had to, give them some sweet finesse, I think is what he said, because he was running those tyres, I think, to the absolute end of what they could manage. You might be right. It might have been a Lewis Hamilton tyre masterclass today. And that might be the difference it makes between a seven-time champ like Hamilton and Russell, who maybe overdid it with some fighting and defending and they fell off. So who knows? It's a good question.
It was good to see, actually, Hamilton acknowledge the driver that beat him over 3 seasons on points.
Oh, my God.
If you do add all the points together across those 3 years, you'll find Jensen Button does end up ahead. Yeah, it's a good point. That
podcast. I might just start this one.
The Jensen Button Hour.
It doesn't exist.
Oh, dear.
Right. Driver of the day.
Oh. Who's going first?
The verdict is in.
No.
Oh.
You're the driver of the day. You're the driver of the day. You're good at driving.
That's you, viewer, listener.
You're good at driving. Harry, what you got?
I'll go for the obvious one here. Shout out firstly to Danny Rick. I think we've got to give that one. I know he's been back already, but second race back, I guess, again. But was very impressive this weekend. But if it was based off the whole weekend, I wouldn't give it to this person because he shouldn't have been where he was in the first place. But based on today, Lando Norris. Some filthy overtakes today. Just stop being so naughty. It was, I felt dirty after watching it. But just made the medium tyre work in that second stint. I know he got mogged at the start again, which again knocks him down a few points, but made that medium tyre work like no other person could make it work. I don't know what he was doing. Lewis Hamilton was doing some sweet finesse. Well, who knows what Lando Norris was doing to those tyres, but...
Lewis Hamilton just took it to Dirty Town. And he got naughty with it.
Naughty. But yeah, I'll get Lando Norris for me. Verstappen again, obvious contender, but what else is there to say about Max Verstappen? So I won't say him. But yeah, I'll settle for Lando Norris, the popular vote.
There are actually rumours in the paddock that George Russell might not go to the Brazilian Grand Prix to race because his career might be over.
He's over. He sent him so bad. It was unreal.
He's absolutely covered in filth.
I threw up.
I've actually vomited.
The Ferrari pass as well through turns 4 and 5. Okay, sorry. Was it Ferrari or was it on Ricciardo? No, it was on Ricciardo. The Ricciardo move through turns 4 and 5. That was sheesh. That's what kicks do. Sheesh.
I don't even know what that is, but sure.
Neither do I. It's a good thing. Let me know. Is that good?
Is that offensive? Who knows?
Am I offending everyone?
Sam, what have you got? Driver of the day.
I don't want to pick the same as Harry, just for variation, but Lando Norris 100% deserves it. The reason why I actually wouldn't give it to Lando is the point you made, Harry, that he put himself there in the first place, and I do think he mucked up on the restart, and I think that was all his fault as well. But the overtakes were sensational. I'm going to go with old Louis Ham because I think that might be his best drive of this season so far. Great tyre management. He destroyed the Ferraris, both of them. He had to work on his own to do it. The strategy finally from Mercedes was bang on. They actually got it entirely right. Every tyre choice was correct. The pit lap was correct. They were aggressive. Well done to Mercedes. And he didn't moan once, not properly. Only a little bit. He said, this might be difficult. Bono went, you can do it. And he went, yes, I can. And
It's
I'm like,
honestly
yes.
like a child. Bono's worked it out. Just be happy, positive tones, and we'll be fine. And Lewis like, yeah, right.
Lewis like he's 5 and he will thrive. That's the new rhyme.
You're one of 8 drivers on the medium tyre. I'm sure you can do it like the rest will.
Remember how many times you've won and how many championships you have. If anyone could do it, Lewis, it's you. And Lewis goes, oh, you're too nice. I'm going to do it. So for me, he gets driver of the day. He was great.
When Bono, it was early in the race, Bono came on the radio and was like, how's the balance, Lewis? And he was like, balance is great, mate. And I was like, okay. Hamilton's having a great race today. We're having a great day. We cooking.
We can get a bit happy.
Okay. From my side, yeah, Daniel Ricciardo deserves a shout out. Lando Norris is not getting driver of the day from me. Qualified better, scrub. Lewis Hamilton was great. I am going to give it to Max Verstappen. He wasn't even in the top 3.
That's fair.
I mean, if it weren't for the red flag, that might have been the most dominant win he'd had all year. He opened up, I think it was about a 16-second lead, had a red flag, had to do a restart again, which is a scary prospect on pole in Mexico, and then opened up another 14-second lead. He opened up a double-digit lead twice in the same race, and he wasn't in the top 3 for driver of the day. I'm going to give it to him.
It was another radio message. It's really ominous when, again, fairly early on, GP was like, Max, you don't need to take that much curb at turn 3. And he was like, mate, I'm trying to not do, but this car is terrible through that corner. And he was still extending the gap. And I was like, oh, no.
The phrase, our car isn't quite lovely through that corner.
Quite lovely, that was
sensational. It's not quite lovely through there. Yes, Max, get that tattooed, someone. It's not quite lovely.
Honest, I think it was probably the end of the first lap or maybe the beginning of the second lap, and you saw the gap, and it was like, yeah, this is done. This is done. No chance.
I told you it was going to be pure domination.
What about worst driver of the day?
Get in the bin, worst driver of the day. Bin, worst driver of the day. You suck at driving.
Here we go, Harry.
Who was horrendously bad today? I mean,
There's a long list.
Sergio Perez wasn't great. It feels like the really obvious one to give it to, but you give me first. I'll give it to Sergio Perez. Don't drive into cars at turn 1 on lap 1, mate. That's bad tactic.
Sound advice.
Let's get the book out. Don't crash.
Write it down. Another one would have been Yuki Tsunoda, who actually was having a great race. I mean, he was helped by the red flag somewhat, having a great race. But then he's like, Oscar Piastri, you don't exist. So bye-bye. I'm going to drive as if you weren't there. And then ruin any chance points. So well done, Yuki. But I'll go for Perez.
Have you got Sam?
Two of the names that I think are fully justified, Harry has called out. I'm going to go with the opposite side of the Mercedes garage, though, Georgie Russ, who started, 2 places behind his teammate, couldn't get half the overtakes done, burnt out his tyres very quickly. I think ending up something like 25 seconds behind his teammate, which any other team at that front end, we would have called out immediately as an absolute shocker. Russell just has not got to grips with the car and the tracks, both at COTA and here at Mexico, and he's on the struggle bus to nowhere town at the moment, and the guy needs some points because this is rapidly turning into a bit of a Lewis Hamilton domination in the team standings. They're close in qualifying, but at the moment that race pace is nowhere for him. And this was, I say he was under pressure at the start of the race weekend. He's not delivered. It was a shocker. As we've already spoken about, the feel from Norris to mug him off like that. Someone like George Russell as well. That's not on. You can't be having that, George. So, yeah, Russell, worst driver of the day.
Fernando Alonso. Slow.
Very slow.
Very slow.
I was hoping we wouldn't get back to Aston Martin.
It sounds weird to say it. Fernando Alonso and slow don't usually belong in the same sentence unless there's also a negative in there. But yeah, I know he retired, but he wasn't fighting in the top 10 before that, was he?
Fernando Alonso.
Passed by his teammate. Yeah, just a rough weekend. Really, I mean, the spin itself and qualifying was not good, and it just didn't get any better from there.
He hates that new car, doesn't he? Can I throw out a conspiracy theory?
Oh, God.
Some full hats on, everyone.
I don't think it's going to matter what our answer is, so
I'm going to say it. It's a rhetorical question. I think they retired him to save face.
I fully agree.
I mean...
to be fair, I mean, he's trundling around at the back. What difference does it make if they take him out?
I don't know. Like, would he have saved face? Like, if he'd finished 16th, would that have...
I think they'll come out and say that he had a problem for most of the Grand Prix or something, or is it always nursing an issue? I think that's what they'll come out and say.
But they could say that even if he finished, right?
Yeah, true, but I think this compounds it. So that's what I think they've done. I think they love Alonso and they've gone, oh, let's help him.
Please stay with us. Rather controversially, we'll do Big Bane strategy.
Big Bane.
We're going into Batman territory.
Sorry, just
we'll
on that.
Do big.
Sorry, Ben. Just on that note of mispronouncing things, did you hear Crofty say that George Russell finished sex when he came across the line?
Yeah, I had a real childish giggle to myself.
Sorry. Anyway, Big Bane.
Oh, good job, Crofty.
There's an awful joke in there somewhere. I'm not going to try and find it. Right. Nope. We'll do big brain strategy in the next segment, and we'll take our next short break. Let's talk a bit about Alpha Tauri, because Daniel Ricciardo, from a personal perspective, delivered a great performance, but obviously it's also a very good performance for the team. We actually discussed this on the preview episode, those sorts of 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th positions and what could change come the end of this season. That's a rather useful result for the team, Sam.
Yeah, I think now, Ben, you're going to correct me if I'm wrong. Have they become equal with Alfa Romeo on points after that 7th place result that Ricciardo picked up, or are they just behind?
Yeah, I think so. They're now level on 16, maybe.
But I think they've gone above them because of performances, right? Yeah. So as they like to really hammer home over the UK commentary, that essentially was a $20 million performance. That's the level of prize money they just gained from that jump. And I don't think I'm the only one. That Alpha Tauri surprised me today. I think they claimed it was the most upgraded car this season over the course of the whole season. And for the first time, I think we really got a proper taste of what that looked like, both from Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda's point of view. I think Yuki showed a little bit of inexperience, as Harry's already mentioned. He literally forgot Oscar Piastri existed. He did a Charles Leclerc at Austria, where he just didn't realize the size of his car and drove straight into the side of someone. Great move there, Yuki. But the red flag helped out Yuki, and it looked like at one point we were going to get maybe like a 6th and 8th or a 7th and 8th from Alpha Tauri, which would have brought them right behind Williams in one performance. And after this Grand Prix, there's every chance they can still beat Williams. 7th place could still very much be on the cards overall from pure points perspective. Ricciardo was phenomenal. That qualifying lap was fantastic. We said, Kajuki, if you think out the penalty or from the back, also qualifying Q3. They were just delivering strong performances, strong laps, time and time again. Whatever they've done, where they've changed their upgrade strategy to follow more closely to Red Bull, has immediately kicked them up the performance grid. And they might be a threat for regular points now for the last 3 races of the season. The likes of Alpine asking if they bother to turn up, Haas, Williams are going to need to be wary, because the positions from kind of 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th in the point standings every race, they might have 2 Alpha Tauris in them from now on. It might be much harder for them to get regular points. I genuinely think this might flip the script. I think they could beat Williams out come the end of the season.
What are your thoughts, Harry?
Yeah, I mean, we saw glimpses of this at the end of the race in Austin. We were there, if we didn't mention that already.
Are we?
I know, did a live show as well. But the problem was in Austin, they qualified much worse than they did this time. I know Yuki was at the back this time, but Ricciardo in particular for the main race was not in a good spot, or as good a spot. So we didn't really see that come to fruition quite so much, and it was happening towards the end of the race, but they weren't really spots that were worthy fighting for. So it's good to see that's carried on. I'll be intrigued to see if it continues to carry on or if it was more track specific with Mexico. But yeah, it's a huge chunk of points. I tell you what, it's really helped my teammate awards predictions as well. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Yuki, for being bad on that one.
Yeah, big poos on that for me. Big poos.
Don't worry, because Ocon. Oh no, Ocon gained a point.
Just 1 point. I'm all right.
We move.
Yeah, you keep
Sure.
moving very slowly, Grandpa.
Come on.
We are crawling along. But anyway, yeah, look, it's encouraging for AlphaTauri, and as you say, start of the year it was a terrible car. It's getting much better rapidly in a similar way to the McLaren, although not quite McLaren pace, but although he did beat Piastri, didn't he, Ricciardo? So who knows? I tell you what, Piastri, he's very young. Just stop chewing your tyres up, mate. Stop doing that, because
Ate him.
he
Actually got out of the car.
Mid-race snack.
Munched.
Yeah.
absolute chomp. But yeah, so it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes for the remainder of the season. But it's an encouraging sign for AlphaTauri, and if they're moving more towards a Red Bull structure as we move into next year, then that's only good news for them. But today was very encouraging. It was clear they had a quick car, and actually, yes, I'll be really pleased with P7. Arguably, they could have had P6. I think Ricciardo got slightly mugged at the restart with Russell. He got slightly boxed in. And Tsunoda should have picked up points as well. So it could have been an even bigger haul. But this is it's a big result for them considering where they started this year.
I reckon watch out for Las Vegas. I reckon they're going to go big there.
There you go.
On the track or off the track?
Both, mate. I think they're going to put it all on black and win everything. They'll win the title.
I don't think Max Verstappen's going to put his title on the line on a roulette.
Imagine that if that's the twist. You could gamble away the title.
In terms of this result, massively encouraging for Ricciardo personally, massively encouraging for the team. And whilst this was definitely the highlight of their year so far, I think the best thing for them is it wasn't out of place. Like I know that this might have been the peak of their performance, but as referenced, the last few races, they have pretty much been on it. We did have a couple of races where Yuki Tsunoda was not allowed to finish a lap. It would have been really interesting to see where he would have been in those 2 races, because I think this car has had pace pretty much since the summer break. I don't remember them being particularly quick at Zandvoort, but outside of that, I think they've had an all right car since we've come back. And this was the best result so far. From Daniel Ricciardo's perspective, his individual result, what we often see with these teams that are 7th, 8th, 9th in the championship, is that whenever they do deliver a result that's in the points, it will come as a result of something unexpected happening in a Grand Prix. So, for example, Nico Hülkenberg at the Australian Grand Prix picked up 7th place, I think. But the amount of things that needed to happen for that result to happen, on pure pace, he's probably not getting a point. Look at Austin last time out and Williams finishing 9th and 10th. They need disqualifications to finish there. here, apart from Sergio Perez, who obviously retired first lap, I don't think there was anyone lower than Ricciardo that should have beaten him on pace today. I think Piastri finished behind him. He was quicker than Piastri. Simply put, he was quicker. And he might well have been quicker than George Russell. And to your point, if he doesn't get him at the start, I don't think Russell makes that overtake happen. So he finished, I think, where he deserved to finish. And if Yuki Tsunoda had remembered Oscar Piastri was a person, he might have been there as well. Those two drivers were, I think, legitimately top 7 performers, which is great for Alpha Tauri to look at a result like this, not to just say, yeah, we've got the points, but to say that we legitimately got those points. 3 races to go. If they can claim anything more, 7th place might well be out there for them. Let's move on to McLaren. So obviously we've touched on Lando Norris's recovery in other segments so far, but just to look at that, obviously a qualifying performance that left a lot to be desired, a lot of work to do in the race today. Up 12 positions from his starting position, which we know beats his previous record, which was 9 positions gained in a Grand Prix, all the way up to 10 points in 5th place. Sam, I know we've already given him a nod in driver of the day, so I'm assuming this will be mostly praise, but what were your thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, I mean, if we remove the concept of Saturdays from a Formula One race weekend, this was absolutely phenomenal. If we don't remove the concept of qualifying, then he had to do all the work that he didn't do on the Saturday. And don't get me wrong, he did the work. He actually put a shift in and he recovered fully to where he probably should have been. Arguably, he could have been further up. So, if you're going to make a mistake, he owned it. He came out on the radio immediately and he was very frustrated with himself, but he was also very clear that the blame lies with him. And I respected that. And he got in that car on Sunday and he just did it. He just did the F1 and he did it really quite well. Overtakes were filthy. He held no prisoners. He, planted it around inside, outside, all sides, upside, downside. He was everywhere. The man could not be stopped when it came to overtakes. And when you are struggling to get a performance in on the Saturday, which we're seeing a couple of times now from Lando, I'm thinking of Qatar as well. He had a bit of a bustle there. You've got to be able to deliver it on the Sunday. You've got to be able to recover. And he did recover. The fact that he was passing Piastri was immense. And then I think realistically, he probably should have beaten Sainz, but he bottled the restart. So I think probably 4th, maybe not 3rd, but, it could have been on the cards. So, it was a great recovery. It's a shame he had the bad qualifying. I think if he didn't have bad qualifying and he qualifies in the top 10, he could have been fighting with Hamilton, I think, for a P2 or P3.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And ultimately, I think everything went against him today. Some of it self-inflicted, some of it not self-inflicted, but I think almost everything went against him. So firstly, he was the only driver to use the soft tyre. I still don't think that was a good idea. I think he could have used the medium tyre and still done the same strategy, and that would have been more effective. The soft tyre, he was struggling on that, and he only gained 2 positions on the start. So I think they were perhaps, and one of them was, of course, Perez. So in reality, it was 1 position gained at the start. I think they were probably hoping for more than that, given the tyre compound difference. So I think he should have started on the medium. So that didn't go his way. Obviously, then he pit when the safety car came out, but before the red flag came out, which I think that's probably on the team in that I think it was fairly obvious a red flag was going to be waved there. I think as soon as it happened, I went, yeah, it's a red flag. So I think McLaren should have seen that coming. That obviously hurt. The poor start was self-inflicted, but again, that didn't go his way. I think if you add all of those things together, if all of those things he either does better or other people do better for him, I think Sainz was gettable. I think Leclerc was gettable. And in pure pace, he was probably on it with Hamilton. I don't know about Verstappen, obviously, because Verstappen was quite good. But Hamilton and Norris, I think pace-wise, there probably wasn't much to choose. So to beat your teammate as well when you're starting 10 positions or whatever it ended up being difference, that's pretty good going. So, he did pretty much everything he needed to do in that recovery. But 2 points, Sam, it's his own fault. He needed to do it. Harry, your thoughts?
Norris is going to start thinking, what, and it's mostly his own fault, but like, what do I need to do? There's always something that goes wrong. Again, I don't think this was a win on the cards, but there just seems to be something that gets in the way from a better result. And yeah, qualifying yesterday was it, and then I guess a restart as well. As you mentioned, being pit under the safety car didn't cost him massively, but it still puts you further back a little bit. And yeah, things seem to work against him. Sometimes not his fault, sometimes they are his fault. But you know, it was still an very encouraging drive from him, as we've already mentioned. But he just needs everything to come together for him. Like Piastri, he's been better than Piastri this year. Not saying Piastri's been bad, but overall Piastri has not been quite as good as Lando Norris. I think we saw that again today. But Piastri's the one who's got a sprint win, and it's that sort of thing. Like it just came together for Piastri on that day. When it didn't for Norris, and that was kind of self-inflicted again from Norris because he had he went off the track, didn't he, in qualifying or something, I can't remember, but yeah, he must start to be wondering that, but it all, I'm confident it will come together for him at some point if he continues to drive the way he does. Just needs a bit of luck on his side.
Okay, let's do Big Bane strategy, shall we?
Nice.
Bob, we're gonna need you to box for wets. What? It's not even raining out. What are you talking about? Yeah, and Bob, if you get a chance, let your teammate pass you. What? He crashed out. He's not even in the race.
Oh, it just reminds me of seeing the Killers live, which we did in Austin last week.
They didn't play this one.
Honestly, they were one song away on the set list as well because they played Jenny was a friend of mine, and I love that song, but I was a bit sad.
Harry, what was your big brain strategy?
My big brain strategy was just Ferrari coming on the radio said they're going to do a one-stop. I'm sorry. You're going to do
that?
You're going to do a what? You just said it. When did they do that? Never. I was shocked.
Apparently, the alphabet starts with A.
But that's the thing. I think that would have been plan A. They didn't have to go very far down the playbook to get to that strategy. They could have said plan A.
I honestly shooketh. I just couldn't believe it. Anyway, as I said, it would have been intriguing to see how that played out. They didn't do a one-stop at the end because of the red flag, but I just couldn't believe it. Ferrari saying what they're going to do on strategy. Who knew?
My big brain strategy is one of my favorites for a long time.
Oh, here we go.
My man, the bacon was out. Esteban Ocon calling his shots, saying, "Listen here, ass, you punks. I'm going to overtake you, Nico Hulkenberg," and then just not doing it. No, so he gave it a go, and it was the worst attempt at an overtake. He kind of just whirled through the corner, and then just it didn't happen. And he nearly got so out of shape that he was overtaken by Gasly. He was right.
Such
he
a big
made
man.
The overtake just 15 laps later on. Honestly, the cheers in this household when Ocon went from 11th to 10th, it was the whole village heard.
Man didn't put a time limit. Man didn't put a time limit on it. All right, he didn't.
Haas, I'm calling you out.
But what did he think? Why? I don't understand why he said that.
Ever happened?
Why calling out an entire team to say I'm coming for you? No.
I hope Hulk's shaking in his boots because I'm coming.
What?
He thought he was in Fast and Furious, didn't he, for a minute? He thought he was Vin Diesel.
Oh God!
I tell you, Alpine must be hating Haas because Gasly was stuck behind Hulkenberg for the entire first stint, and then Ocon was behind him the whole second stint. But yeah, all that for 1 point. Sam, what was your big brain strategy?
Now, as much as I love that one, and Ben, you're right, that was hilarious. We've taken too long a step away from Ferrari. 1 point away from Ferrari is one too many. So we're going to bring it right back to them. And this was when the red flag had come out and Charles Leclerc's little radio message pops up and goes, if we go hard tyres on the restart, it's going to be a disaster. We're going to be, it won't work. Cut, race restart. Both cars on the hard tyre.
It'll be a mess.
it didn't work. Should have listened to Charles Leclerc because it didn't work. So that was great. I mean, they were doing so well with the plan A and the one stop, and it all looked confident. And then they didn't listen again, and it didn't work. So yeah, that one.
Go on, Ferrari. 2 out of 3 is a usual appearance for you in this segment. We'll take our last short break. Moment of the race on the other side. Okay, moment of the race submissions, as always, provided by our Discord that we'll get to in just a moment's time, but we'll give our own moment of the race before that. So, Sam, kick us off. What was yours?
Well, I've got to talk more about the Norris cut through of the whole track, but it was that move from Norris on Ricciardo. It could not have been more inch perfect if he tried. The man was, he was like Rambo. He was just cutting through everything around him. And Daniel Ricciardo, when he's on it, he's on it. And the last of the late breakers, as they like to keep saying on Sky F1, copyright my fools. I think that you go up against Daniel, you expect a challenge, but Lando planting it, smashed it, owned it. Thank you. Bye-bye. It was great. Loved it. Fantastic move from Lando Norris.
I don't want to single out one incident, but there were a number of incidents throughout the Grand Prix. Stroll, Bottas, Perez first corner, Piastri, Tsunoda. And I want to give credit there, Norris and Ricciardo through that corner. It kind of made the others look a little bit amateurish, I thought. Just how much trust they had in one another to make that work. And then seeing all the other ones pile up. That's how I kind of saw that.
Yeah, fair.
Harry, what was your moment of the race?
Related to your final point there, Ben, mine was Yuki Tsunoda was obviously forgetting that Piastri existed, just drove into him and got punted off. But my moment of the race is Oscar Piastri on the radio, just the least unfazed man you've ever heard in human history. He just drove into me.
There's a Tsunoda in my hip.
He's just, it honestly baffles me how he just doesn't care. Like that. Oh, that was annoying. Oh well. Oh, we'll move on. Carry on.
Like a collision at 200 miles an hour. That was mildly irritating.
It's just how he sounds like he doesn't care.
Yeah, I'm sure he does care,
but just the way he sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it though, because a lot of them, get very annoyed on the Esteban Ocon with this complete random outbursts. They say some weird stuff on the radio. Oscar Piastri's just like, oh, okay, all right then, never mind.
I'll wipe my hands of it. On to the next one.
On to the next one. We move.
I'm actually going with quite an obvious moment of the race, which was David Croft calling Esteban Gutierrez and Jerome D'Ambrosio henchmen. I love it. Why? Look at me. Esteban Gutierrez. Okay.
Sure.
The world's strongest men.
Yes.
Jerome D'Ambrosio.
But what have we got from our Discord?
Alrighty then. Here we go, folks. First up, Bristol Liam. Because obviously...
Oh, God.
Bring on the accent.
Right. My moment of the race, it's going to sound a bit cruel, but it was K-Mag crashing because it brought the red flag so I could go and make my hot chocolate without being scared of missing something in the race. Cheers.
Very valid
point. He burnt his
point.
tongue on that. He burnt his tongue.
Oh, man. Can I just say as well, another nomination for the moment of the race was Kevin Magnussen just stood at the sidelines watching his crumpled hat burn. Just like, you burn, I don't care.
Fair. Completely fair.
Oh, lordy lord. Okay, next up is... come on. 19 kilobytes of Skylar. Right, here we go.
K-Mag sitting on barriers.
Well, there you go. Nab mine.
Yes. There you go.
Yes, well done, Skylar.
Cheers, Skylar. I guess this will be a happy person. Bungers.
Hello, my late-breaking lads from across Lay Big Wet. It is the McLaren CEO, yeah! And my moment of the race for the Mexican Grand Prix has to be that sweet overtake that Lando pulled on Daniel Ricciardo, leaving just enough space for me to stick a nickel in there and save it for later when I need a soda from the vending machine. Yeah!
I'm going to steal that one.
Stick a nickel.
Yeah.
Good lord.
Just picking up a stick a nickel.
Thank you, Bungers. Next up is El Plan Sam.
Hey guys, moment of the race, Lando Norris around the outside of Daniel Ricciardo. That was absolutely amazing. Also, Yuki Tsunoda trying and failing to go around the outside of Oscar Piastri, and Piastri just being like, yeah, he hit me. Like, so calm. I literally love him.
Me and you both, Alplan Sam. I love that. Next up is Shaky Pudding. Is this a new one or a new name? I can't tell. But anyway, here comes Shaky
How can a
Pudding.
pudding be shaky?
It's jello.
Jelly, yeah.
Feeble
Jello. Here we
Gotta
go.
be jello because jam don't shake.
Here we go.
Hey, late breakers. Shaky Puddin here. It's my first submission. Moment of the race for Mexican Grand Prix has got to be that last pass by Norris on Russell. Smooth as butter. Runner-up would be them saying George Russell came in sixth place instead of sixth at the end.
A man after our own heart.
Oh, we had a very childish giggle over that.
Smooth as butter, shaky as pudding.
That's a bumper sticker.
Oh, good Lord. Okay. Next up, Norm from Texas.
Hola, donde está
Oh my
la
gosh.
biblioteca? Anyway, hey everyone, it's Norm from Texas, and I'm here to give
Did he just say he goes to the library?
I think
He's
so.
asking where it is.
All right, okay, fine.
my moment of the race. And my moment of the race was watching both of the McLarens get into the points. Oh my goodness. We got Oscar Piastri driving like the cold-blooded psycho we know him to be. We got Lando Norris driving so angry. He came back from all the way in the back of the field up into fifth. Also, Alcon, buddy, don't call your shots. Anyway, keep breaking late. And this one's for boogers. Yeah!
Oh, good.
All the points were made.
No time was given.
Exactly. Next up, SoCal Jen.
Hey there, gentlemen. It's SoCal Jen here. Hope you're recovered from your jet lag.
Yeah.
Moment of the
Still tired.
race. Oh, God. Checo, lap one. Wah, wah. Come on, Checo. But on a happier note, what about that Danny Ricciardo? P7, almost P6. Okay, guys, join the Patreon and keep breaking late.
Thank you, SoCal.
Love that.
We should start using their sounds on the soundboards because that whap whap was great.
That was good. Got a lot of time for
The real John Moe. I think we got a few. Oh,
No,
good Lord.
no,
I've seen.
not the real one.
I've seen
I only know the fake one.
I've seen a name for 2 times. Oh, anyway, we'll get to that. The real John Moe is next.
Finding out that Checo's going to be a commercial airline pilot after shanking that landing so badly is definitely the highlight of the race.
Oh, he shanked that landing. Thank you, the real John Moe. I appreciate that. We appreciate that. I think another new one, FGE Digital. Sounds like a business has sent us something. But anyway, here we go.
Saturday, lads. My moment of the race would definitely have to be Ocon on the radio telling his engineer to tell Haas he's going for it.
Oh, good Lord.
And then bottled it and didn't go for it for about 10 laps.
Yep, it's a good
That's
one.
the French way, I think. That's the French way. I'll get to it. I get to it.
Taking his time. It's fine.
Okay, next up is Chucky LePlucky.
Brilliant.
Nice.
Sensational.
Moment of the race. It's just a little bit of fire.
Yeah, it was just a little bit of fire.
Ooh, just a little bit. Ooh, just a little bit more.
Just a little bit of fire.
That's all it is.
Kitty Ninja is next.
I don't really have a moment of the race. I mean, I would just say, the pass that Lando had on Russell was fantastic. But I got to give it to Daniel Ricciardo for bringing home P7 in a car that doesn't deserve to be in P7. Okay, bye.
I love moment of the race submissions that start with "I don't have a moment of the race."
Yeah,
it's great.
And they give a full moment of the race.
Yeah, you did have one.
We got stick for skipping the whoever that was last. Who was it?
Yeah,
Carlson.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry, Carlson.
Finally, deep breath, everyone.
Oh no, I can't do it.
Finally,
I can't do it.
Is a submission here.
No, you can't.
From Randy Dick. Here we go.
Good day, mates. It's your boy, Randy Dick. Driver of the day, Danny Rick. Phenomenal. Another lap and you would have had that Palmy George. Worst driver of the day, Perez. If he's going to finish 120 minutes behind Danny, he might want to give footy a go.
Did he call George Russell a pom?
Yes. We are the Apples.
It was a good performance. I got up for that.
I think he meant pommies in the Aussie slang term for English people, not apples.
Oh, I thought that's what it translated to, because it's French.
They call us the
French, but it
apples.
works to pommy.
Is that? Oh, I'm gonna Google it now. Did they call us pommies because we look like apples?
Probably when we sunburn.
I feel like there's a more historic reasoning behind it, but I'd like to think that's the reason.
You'll be pleased to know, everyone, that was the last one.
We made it.
We made it.
There was no going up from that point.
Very true. Very true.
I am utterly exhausted. Sam, would you mind getting us out of here?
Oh, yeah, we've made it. Sorry, folks. Every time, if you're watching on the camera, which is available on YouTube, so you can follow us there, every time I shut my eyes, I could have fallen asleep because I'm that tired from the jet lag. So it's good to finish it off. I hope you had a lovely time listening. Join the Discord, links in the description. Follow us on social media, the Late Breaking F1. Just Late Breaking F1 without the podcast on it anymore because we're everywhere. We are everywhere. We don't put it's just Late Breaking F1. We are everywhere. We are omnipotent. You can also join Patreon. You get 2 extra episodes, Beer with Breaking, ad-free episodes, discount on merch, a shout out on your birthday, and gaming nights with us every single month. You also get pre-sale access to live shows when we do them because that's what happened in COTA. So might be worth joining on for if you want to come to a live show in the future. We love you. We need you. Please never leave us. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been Harry Eads.
And remember, keep breaking late.
Randy Dick.
Nope.